Hey guys, welcome back to Ripe Stories. This video is all about crazy entitled neighbors and the stories are super satisfying. Let's dive right into the video. The first one is titled A Literal Dumpster Fire of a Neighbor. So this all started about 2 weeks ago when my dad and I decided it was time to do some much needed work on his house. He's been living in the same place for over 40 years and while he's always kept it tidy, time takes its toll on everything. For context, I'm in my mid-40s and moved out long ago, but I come by regularly to help my dad with maintenance. He's getting older now, 77, and while he is still independent, some tasks are becoming more difficult for him. I've been dealing with some health issues myself. I have a degenerative disc disease that limits what I can physically do, but I managed. We planned a comprehensive exterior renovation, aka repainting the entire house, replacing some rotted wood on the porch and eaves, fixing gutters, and general cleanup of decades of accumulated stuff in the garage and shed. I hired a small crew of workers to help with the heavy lifting, and I took a week of work to oversee the project and pitch in where I could. One of the first things I organized was renting a large dumpster. If you've never rented one before, they are not cheap. This one cost $650 for a 1-week rental, and that was after shopping around for the best rate. It was delivered last Monday and scheduled for pickup on Tuesday of the following week, giving us a full weekend to finish all our work. Well, everything was going smoothly until Thursday afternoon when my dad showed me a Facebook Messenger notification on his phone. "Do you know this person?" he asked, handing me his phone. The message was from a woman who apparently lived in the house behind us and one over. Despite her having lived there for nearly as long as my dad has been in his house, neither of us had ever actually met her. The neighborhood has changed over the years, and unlike when I was growing up, people don't really socialize with their neighbors much anymore. Her message read, "Hi, I noticed you have a dumpster in your driveway. I got a couple old mattresses I need to get rid of. Would it be okay if I throw them in your dumpster?" Now, I was raised to be neighborly and my first instinct was to be helpful. But I also knew that we had a lot of our own junk to dispose of and the dumpster, while large, was not infinite. Also, mattresses take up a lot of space, so I responded from my dad's phone and said, "Hey there, we are planning to use this weekend to finish throwing things away as we complete our renovation work. If there's room left for your mattresses, I would be happy to let you know by Sunday evening. That would give you Monday to bring them over before the Tuesday pickup. What size mattresses are they, so I can gauge if there will be space?" I thought it was a perfectly reasonable response, polite, not an outright rejection, but managing expectations. She never replied to my question about the size, which I found a bit odd, but I figured maybe she was busy or did not check her messages very often. Saturday arrived and we were in full work mode. The crew was tearing out the last of the rotted wood, I was sorting through boxes from the shed, and my dad was supervising from his lawn chair, occasionally pointing out spots we had missed on the painting. The dumpster was already about 2/3 full and we still had the entire garage to tackle on Sunday. Around 1:30 p.m. I noticed a car pull up across the street. 2 guys got out, followed by a woman who appeared to be in her 60s. They opened the trunk and I could see that they were preparing to unload 2 single mattresses. It took me a moment to realize what was happening here. I set down the box that I was sorting and walked over to them as they started crossing the street towards our driveway. "Hey there, can I help you?" I asked, trying to sound friendly despite my confusion. The woman looked at me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes and said, "Yes, I managed about putting my mattresses in your dumpster. We are here to drop them off." I immediately recognized the situation was about to get awkward. "Oh, are you the neighbor who messaged on Thursday? I'm sorry, but as I mentioned in my reply, we are still filling the dumpster ourselves. I said I would let you know Sunday evening if there was room." Her smile disappeared. "I need to get rid of these today. These are my nephews and this is the only day they could help me." I tried to remain calm and reasonable. I understand that's inconvenient, but as I explained in my message, we are still using the dumpster for our project. We paid quite a bit for it and I need to make sure we have enough space for all our debris first. "But they are just 2 small mattresses," she insisted, gesturing to the single mattresses her nephews were now holding. "There's plenty of room." "Well, right now there might be," I explained, "but we still have a full day of work tomorrow and we are going to be filling up quite a bit more. That's why I offered to let you know tomorrow evening if there would be space." "Did you get my message back?" she asked, sounding annoyed. "No, you never responded to my question about what size the mattresses were." She waved her hand dismissively and said, "Well, now you can see, they're just singles, it won't take up much room." I was starting to get irritated by her presumption, but tried to maintain my composure. I'm sorry, but I cannot guarantee that there will be room for them after we finish all our work. That is why I suggested waiting until Sunday evening to confirm. That is when she changed tactics. "Look, I'm disabled," she said, gesturing vaguely to herself. "I cannot do this another day. My nephews are only in town today, and I won't have anyone to help me tomorrow or Monday." Now, I don't like to bring up my own health issues, but her attempt to use disability as leverage bothered me, especially since she seemed perfectly mobile at that moment. "I understand that's frustrating," I replied, "but I'm also disabled with degenerative disc disease and I've had to carefully plan this entire project around my limitations. The fact is, I paid $650 for this dumpster specifically for our renovation. I can't promise that there will be room for your mattresses." Her face hardened. "So you're just going to make a disabled woman haul mattresses to the dump herself?" "I never said that," I replied, feeling my patience wearing thin. "I said I would let you know tomorrow if there's room. If you had messaged me back explaining your situation with help only being available today, we might have worked something out. But you cannot just show up unannounced and expect to use something that I paid for without any proper coordination." "This is ridiculous," she huffed. "That dumpster is half empty." "It's actually about 2/3 full," I corrected her, "and we have all of tomorrow to finish our work. I'm sorry, but I need to prioritize what we paid for." She turned to her nephews and said, "Can you believe this? 40 years we've been neighbors and this is how they treat people." I had to bite my tongue, and at that point, "Ma'am, with all due respect, in those 40 years, you have never once introduced yourself to my father, and the first contact we've ever had with you was when you wanted something from us." She glared at me for a long moment and then turned to her nephews and said, "Put those back in the car. Some people just don't know how to be neighborly." As they grudgingly loaded the mattresses back into their car, I felt a mixture of frustration and guilt. The irony was not lost on me. Here she was accusing me of not being neighborly when she had ignored my reasonable response and just shown up expecting accommodation. The worst part? As she was getting into her car, I found myself almost calling out to her, "If you had just explained your situation beforehand, I could have had my workers help you with the mattresses on Monday." But the words died in my throat as she slammed her car door and drove off, still grumbling visibly through her windshield. The following day, as we finished our cleanup, we actually did end up with enough space that her mattresses would fit. For a brief moment, I considered messaging her to let her know, but after reflecting on her entitled attitude, I decided against it. If she had been respectful of our initial agreement instead of trying to bulldoze her way into using something we paid for, things could have ended differently. That evening, my dad asked if the neighbor had ever responded about the mattresses. "No," I told him, "she just showed up yesterday expecting to use the dumpster." He shook his head and said, "Times have changed. When I first moved here, neighbors would have at least introduced themselves before asking for favors." I nodded, still feeling slightly bothered by the whole encounter. "Do you think I was too harsh with her?" My dad looked thoughtful for a moment and said, "You paid for that dumpster, not her. You also offered a reasonable compromise and she ignored it. Don't lose sleep over it." But I have been losing sleep over this. Not because I think I was wrong, but because I hate conflict, especially with neighbors. My dad has to live next to these people long after I go back to my own home, so Reddit, am I the a-hole for not letting my neighbor dump her mattresses in the dumpster that I paid for, even though she claimed to be disabled and only had help that day? Comment number 1, absolutely not the a-hole. You paid $650 for that dumpster, that is not pocket change. The entitlement of some people is astounding. Showing up without confirmation and then playing the disability card, you handled it better than most would have. Comment number 2, as someone who works in construction, not the a-hole, people don't realize how quickly dumpsters fill up during renovation projects. You can start with what looks like plenty of space and end up needing every cubic inch by the end. You were right to prioritize your own project. Comment number 3, everyone sucks here honestly. Yes, she was entitled and rude to show up unannounced after ignoring your message, but you could have handled it better too. If the dumpster was only 2/3 full at that point, 2 single mattresses probably would not have made a huge difference. Being technically right does not always mean that you're doing the neighborly thing. Both of you got caught up in the principle rather than finding a simple solution. She was definitely more in the wrong, but sometimes taking the high road means making small compromises even when dealing with entitled people, especially since your dad has to live next to her for years to come. And yeah guys, let me know what you think about this story. Do you think OP was in the wrong here and should have acted differently, or was it the right thing to do? Let me know in the comments. Honestly, if I would be in this situation, I would have also not let this entitled Karen use the dumpster, especially when she has never really talked to OP or his dad before in 40 years. That is a next level of entitlement. Anyway, the next one is titled Angry Neighbor Confronts Me While I Am Mowing Senior's Home for Free. For some context, for the past decade I've run my own landscaping and gardening company out in South Africa. It is successful and I do make a good profit. However, a generous portion of the time I spend doing the landscaping is voluntary. I should also note that the neighborhood I live in is very diverse, and over the years there have been people of all walks of life moving in, making the community a very welcoming and inclusive place. A couple of weeks before this situation that I will be retelling, a new woman moved in. Let's call her Karen, a name that certainly fits her, as you will come to learn. The moment after she moved in, there were problems around the neighborhood. People from most streets would have issues, claiming that this new woman knocked on their doors just to inform them that their gardens were unsightly or that their house needed a new lick of paint. Pretty much just butting her nose in where it certainly didn't belong, so my first interaction with her was at our local market. "What are you doing here?" she asked as we both stood by the orange stand. "Just getting some fruit," I replied, thinking she meant the market and was being friendly. "I don't believe we have met. I don't care who you are. I'm asking why are you in my neighborhood?" she snapped as she swatted my hand away that I'd reached out for her to shake. I live here," I replied awkwardly. "What?" she half screamed, attracting attention. "Yeah, I have for over a decade. You're new though, right?" "Yes, I'm new, but not new to this country," she barked. Congrats, I guess? "Don't patronize me. Live here?" "He lives here," she began muttering as she walked away. The market seller raised a brow at me and said, "She's been causing trouble," he stated, which was the first I'd actually heard someone speak about her. "Oh?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, yesterday she kicked off because a new family had moved in down the road from her. Well, that's how she phrased it. Moved in, but really, they had been there longer than she." I couldn't stop thinking about this woman for the rest of the day. I just had this feeling that she was gonna be causing trouble. Spoiler alert, I was right. The next time Karen was causing trouble was when I was cutting the grass of one of our elderly neighbors. I was doing it for free because said neighbor could not afford it and yet loved her lawn trim and neat. "Hey!" she yelled, running up to me from wherever she lived. "Hello," I replied awkwardly, turning off my lawnmower. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded, stomping her foot on the floor when she got closer. I looked down at the lawnmower and looked back, to which she just raised her eyebrows as if that explained nothing. "I'm going for a swim." "Don't be sarcastic with me. I'm clearly mowing our neighbor's lawn." "Listen, less of that attitude. Has she given you permission?" "Yeah, obviously." "And how do I know that?" "Well, what reason do you have to suspect that I don't have permission?" "Well, because you obviously don't fit in around here." "Which means?" "You're the only white person here." She crossed her arms. "Ah, so that automatically means I would go around cutting people's lawns without their permission? And by the way guys, that is certainly something I would not mind if someone cut my lawn without permission. I feel like that's a kind of trespassing that most people would actually want. Anyway, "I don't know, you tell me," she scoffed. "Okay, well, I don't go around cutting people's lawns without permission. There you go." "I don't believe you." Okay, I shrugged and turned on the mower. She did not like this though. "Hey, stop that." She began running closer, and in fear that she would get cut on the blades, I stopped the machine. "Listen lady, I'm doing a good deed here. What is your problem?" "Good deed? How are you doing a good deed? You're polluting this neighborhood with your racist ideology." At this point I just had to take a second in silence. What on earth was she on about? Ideologies of mowing grass? Yeah. Okay, well, anyway, I'm going to continue doing this because your neighbor here has requested for it to be done. "Is this neighbor also white?" "No, there's no way. I'm going to have a word." "Ma'am, done. It's none of your business." I really didn't want this woman bothering the elderly woman that lived here. However, there was clearly no stopping her as she barged right up to the door and knocked loud enough for someone 3 houses down to open their door and peer out. "This man is trespassing on your property," Karen stated once my neighbor opened the door. "Would you like me to call the cops for you?" On the one hand, I respected that she was sticking up for her elderly neighbor if she did think that I was trespassing, but on the other, she was just sticking her nose where it didn't belong. "Don't worry, dear, he is not trespassing, he has permission," she replied. "You gave permission to one of his kind to sort your lawn out?" Karen replied as if I was doing something groundbreaking. My neighbor nodded with a straight face, looking over at me, and seeing the defeated expression she got a good picture of what was going on. "Are you going to leave now?" my neighbor asked. "Leave? Did you not hear what I said? This man is trespassing on your property and destroying your grass." "He is not destroying anything. He comes around once a month and does a wonderful job on my weeds." "This happens regularly?" Karen gasped, as if my neighbor had just told her that I regularly come over and set the garden on fire. Yeah, and it's a lovely thing he's doing." "Lovely? I cannot believe this. He should not be in this neighborhood. It is not for white people." My neighbor just slammed the door after this, clearly not being bothered enough to deal with the situation. "That's it, I'm calling the cops," Karen stated, getting out her phone and dialing the number. A few minutes later, the police arrived. "What is the problem here?" one of the officers asked. "This white man is trespassing on this lady's property." "I can assure you I'm not. Here's a permission slip." I handed it over for the officer to read, who quickly handed it back with a nod. "Here's permission, and from the looks of that slip, this is voluntary work. What is the problem?" The officer sighed. "Look at him, he doesn't belong here, that is the problem." "Right, well, we cannot exactly arrest people for that. Why specifically have you called us? Because wasting police time is a crime." At this point, Karen began stuttering. Get rid of him." "We're not going to do that, ma'am." Karen went back and forth with the officers for a while I just stood there and continued doing my work on the lawn. Another 30 minutes passed and I was nearly finished, yet Karen was still there arguing with the officers. Eventually, the officers left, but not after giving Karen a stern warning for wasting their time. They pretty much just told her to get a grip in a polite way. Karen stormed off after this, not uttering another word. For the next few weeks, she would find me at whatever job I was at and claimed that I was trespassing or attempting to damage their property, and each time I would tell her that I had permission to do what I do. She would never believe me and then go knock on the doors, to which she would be told the same. Word quickly spread that she was doing this, and given that I was well liked in the community, she quickly became disliked. "This man is," she would begin before getting a door slammed in her face. It was quite comical. "You!" she yelled at me one afternoon while I was just shopping at the market once more. I began trying to walk away, not wanting the attention that would result from a big scene. She jogged after me and screamed, "Don't run away from me! Confront your actions! You have been terrorizing this neighborhood!" "Woman, just leave me alone. I've done nothing wrong. I actually got every right to call the cops on you for harassment." She laughed at this. "Harassment? How is this harassment?" I rolled my eyes and carried on walking. How is this not harassment would be my question. She followed me all the way home, only stopping once she saw how many people were giving her funny looks. Later that afternoon, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to two of my neighbors. "You need to stand up to that woman. She needs to stop this harassment," one of them stated. I was actually quite touched that people had properly noticed. The other neighbor continued, "You've done a lot for everyone around here, and we are all willing to help you fight this." "Oh wow, thanks guys, but what am I supposed to do?" "We are holding a meeting, just come." And so I did, and it turns out behind my back, everyone had been scheming a way of getting rid of this stupid Karen. It was great to know that I had such a supportive community around me. Everyone at the meeting was outraged. The more details I shared with them, the rude comments, the constant following and harassment, the police calling, that's it, we need to confront her. Our community elder concluded. At the end of the meeting, we arranged another one for a few days' time. Within this time, Karen's harassment did not stop. She stalked me from one job to the next, followed me in her car or on foot. If it was not for the fact that the rest of the neighborhood was on my side, I would be feeling scared. The meeting scheduled for in a few days was billed as some sort of neighborhood association discussion, something which Karen would certainly be interested in. She even arrived early and began badgering the elders about how she would be the leader of the neighborhood association, and they of course just laughed it off. Once everyone had arrived, including myself, the meeting began. "We are here to discuss another issue than the one officially listed, as most of you know," our elder began. "Karen, I hate to confront people like this, but given your actions, I think this is the right punishment." She looked aghast at this and began looking around before her eyes looked onto mine and then narrowed. "He put you up to this, didn't he?" "No, but the rest of the neighborhood did. You've been harassing and stalking this man constantly, and it needs to stop. Everyone has noticed it. Your behavior has been disgusting and will not be tolerated anymore, not by this man or by any of the council. This is ridiculous. He does not belong here. Can you not see that he doesn't fit in? He has done nothing but good deeds ever since he moved here." One of the elderly residents I regularly visited interrupted. A few other people stood up and vouched for me. It was really sweet. "This is ridiculous. He's put you up to this, hasn't he?" Arguments began breaking out, and the meeting ended up lasting several hours. People would vouch for me, Karen would shut them down, and it would just keep going in this big circle. Eventually, she stood there while people continued explaining all the good deeds I had done in silence. "I'm sorry," was what she eventually muttered to me. I did not really think she was sorry, but I also felt bad that she was being attacked like this. After this, there has been no word from Karen. Either she shut herself away in her house or left the community. Either way, she's no longer bothering me, so I guess the intervention was a success. Overall, this whole experience has taught me that having a good community really can change your whole experience living somewhere. And yeah guys, I hope you never have to deal with such an entitled Karen in your own neighborhood. But either way, thank you for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.